All right, so this is Infosec Decoded number 24, zDNA. And that's what I'm starting with. I was very excited to read this. There are viruses that use different DNA. DNA is only supposed to have um, the four letters that are used, the four base pairs, but there's another one that uses a zDNA, and it is replaces one of the four fundamental base pairs with a different chemical, which they say means that most of the defenses that bacteria have to fight the virus don't work. They look for a pattern of base pairs, and when they don't find the right one, they don't recognize it. And um, one of the part that's most fun about this is they found that the protein precursors for this, or the chemical precursors anyway, are found in meteorites. So that kind of raises the entertaining possibility that had been raised many times that life may have been seeded here by meteorites rather than evolving straight from zero here. And in particular, this kind of life might in fact be a visitor from meteorite. Of course, they haven't proven that by any means, but that is the point of the Mars mission and the other missions that are coming up. There ought to be some life in outer space, some extraterrestrial life. I highly doubt there's anybody we can talk to, but there ought to be at least some bacteria and algae and stuff out there. And anyway, it's kind of fun to see it.
So DNA is alien after all.
Well, maybe. And there is some exchange from planets to planets. The moon totally came from something collided with the Earth and bounced back up. It's not like a planet is an isolated system at all, or a solar system. There is some spreading across the various solar systems. So I don't know, we might go to another planet and find things growing there that are like what we have here. And that'll be pretty soon. We're making a lot of progress finding extraterrestrial planets of the type to support life. So, I won't live for it, but in a few centuries, we ought to have some robot probes out there sending back some pictures and find out what's out there. Anyway, and back home, we've got DigiDog.
Yeah, so in their infinite wisdom, the NYPD bought $100,000 police dog robot, and it made it 4 months before it got retired because shockingly, this didn't go over well with the public. So they retired it, and here goes crazy AOC again, saying like maybe you could put that $100,000 to better use elsewhere. When's the last time you saw cutting edge technology for schools? In one of these communities. And one of the things that blew my mind about this is this $100,000 robot dog is really just a camera. That's all it is.
With legs.
With legs.
Well, it needs a death ray. And then, I don't know. I like the robot dog.
They can't put a death ray on it because Boston Dynamics explicitly forbids that in the contracts for these things.
But there was a guy, I think, in Texas that used their bomb defusing robot and stuck a hand grenade on it to block that guy. That would be the first thing I would do if I was a cop. I would totally send this into like a hostage situation with a hand grenade on it or something. I think it could be really valuable for law enforcement.
Sure.
But I wouldn't just immediately discard it like they did. I think what they needed to do was like have more public education so people didn't freak out.
Oh, so just rebranding it, like Miss Tritium. They just need a better ad campaign.
Well, I think they do, because I think this would actually be very beneficial for a lot of things, like to go into a collapsed building to check and see if there's people in there or something, to check out a gas leak. There's a bunch of things where you want to send in this little robot.
So those things are actually good uses. The problem with the way that they use that robot dog is they sent it into the Bronx for an issue. So everybody who of low economic status is going, oh, now they're bringing in militarization into the poor section. That's really what helped defeat this thing and send it back. Was
they bad track record in New York City.
If they had a different way of showing it or use it in a different situation, it probably wouldn't have had this backlash.
Yeah, it does seem like it was deployed in such a way as to be used as a deliberate intimidation tactic.
Well, that's a problem. Yeah. All right. And so Facebook wants you to turn on the tracking.
So speaking of intimidation, and speaking of that, so now if you have the Facebook app in iOS 14, there's a little message that comes out that specifically says help keep Facebook free of charge.
You know, this reminds me of those trailers they had before movies where some actor would get on and say, you know, when you pirate the movie, all of us don't get paid and then we can't afford to buy dog food or anything. I don't think those have any good effect. Do you?
They don't. They don't.
Yeah, Facebook saying, you know, gee, Facebook, we can't afford it. If you turn off the tracking, we won't have any money. That's not a very good argument.
It's not a very good argument. It's just more argument to get off of Facebook if you're on it. Because not necessarily needed. But yeah, this is their new thing as the Facebook and Apple war continues.
And I hear every podcast I listen to now has ads for like a VPN saying a VPN will protect your privacy. And I'm like, well, you know, a VPN will just hide your IP address. It won't hide all the cookies. So It's not actually going to do any good at all, really. And so it's like cryptocurrency. It's just another scam, you know, to solve a non-problem.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, all right. And then I got some COVID links. COVID is interesting stuff. So the first one is Marcus Hutchins, guy from WannaCry fame. He got COVID and lost his sense of smell. So then Alita Antonio posted this article from Mayo Clinic saying they've discovered that if you lose your smell after getting COVID, you can train your smell again. They get 4 different things and smell them every day for a couple of months to practice smelling again, and that helps you recover. And they have specific instructions of the things you should be smelling. So that's pretty cool. And the other thing is they did a test with the spike protein alone from COVID on blood vessels grown in a petri dish, and they showed what I think some of us have begun to suspect is that COVID is a vascular disease. See, it's not a respiratory disease. It doesn't specifically attack your lungs. It attacks your blood flow, which is why it has all these side effects and long COVID and apparently brain damage and stuff. And they show how it fouls up the blood vessels, which I think would really help understanding it and how to fight it and such, and explain a lot of its properties. And the last one I was really glad to see from New York Times saying we got to stop talking about herd immunity. I hated this ever since this first came out. I haven't studied it. I'm not an epidemiologist, but just from a statistical point of view, the whole point of herd immunity is if some number like 90% of people get a vaccine, then it can't spread. And I always immediately said that is bullshit. That is only true if it's a random 90% of people everywhere. Then when one person gets it, they get over it or die before they can spread it. And then the disease would die. But that is not what 90% would mean in America. It would mean like 100% in the blue states and a whole town in Texas that all refused to take it and a whole religious group that refused to take it. So there'll be pockets of 100% unvaccinated where it will spread. Even when you reach 99%, you don't have an even distribution of the 99%. And so this idea that you could make the disease extinct by having enough people take the vaccine is complete nonsense, unless you do like we did with smallpox and really get, like 99.9% of the people to take it. When smallpox, they managed to do it. But anyway, that's why they're now beginning to admit what I thought was obvious from the beginning. We're never going to get rid of COVID. It's going to become an endemic disease, just like the 1918 flu. And what you can do is lower the prevalence to where it's more rare and have treatment and vaccine. You're going to have to keep vaccinating people and booster shotting people forever. And it will just become another disease is floating around, and you hopefully can get better outcomes and stuff. But they've been talking about this herd immunity where it's just going to be gone. And that was all nonsense from the start. So.
Oh, wouldn't herd immunity actually work if it was global herd immunity?
No, I don't think so. Even then, if you got 90% of all the people on Earth to take the vaccine, it would still not make the disease extinct, because there would be whole pockets somewhere where nobody got vaccinated. It would breed there. That's what happened with smallpox. You really have to go hunt down every little pocket and wipe it out there. We've only eliminated 2 diseases in the entire history of the human race, smallpox and one other one that's less famous. It is an unbelievable effort to really exterminate a disease. And I don't think anybody imagines that COVID is important enough to justify that kind of effort. Far more important would be to wipe out something like malaria. But we just want to That's why I said the only COVID is 10 times worse than the flu. And the only reasonable thing we can do is stamp it down by a factor of 10, where it's about as bad as the flu, and then we'll just accept it and live with it. And now they're finally talking about that, which makes a lot more sense to me. Anyway, so that's it for that. And then we're down to Florida. Oh yeah, Florida wants to make it illegal to ban people on Twitter.
Yeah, so we've now started getting state-specific internet laws in place, and it started really, with California putting in a Data Privacy Act, but not every state uses their power to protect folks. This law was pushed forth by Florida's governor, which seems to be deliberately. It really seems to align with a lot of the issues surrounding the last election, where some politicians felt that they were being treated unfairly by social media platforms. So
that would be Trump.
Yes, that would be Trump.
Yes.
He's only one of them, though. I think I think some of the lower level Republicans were complaining as well. But
who's that? Rush Limbaugh, and who's the really crazy one? Alec Jones. Yeah.
So there's definitely some complaining there, and so they actually pushed forth a bill, and it passed the House already. It's going on to the Senate that would fine social media platforms $10,000 a day, or was $10,000 a day, or $100,000 if the candidate was running for election. And that would be any ban that lasts longer for 60 days. And the platforms would also have to make available to the public any content the candidate had posted before they were deactivated. And one of the really amusing things about this is that the bill contains an exemption for any information service system, internet search engine, or access software provider operated by a company that owns and operates a theme park or large entertainment complex.
Yeah, so that's Disney paying their dues by contributing to political campaigns, so they get exceptions.
It's funny you should mention that. Yes, and they specifically wanted, to avoid having any impact on their streaming service. I think it's Disney Plus, which I thought was pretty interesting. So
Disney Plus is going to ban somebody? I mean, it's not a social network, right?
I don't know. I am not a user.
Yeah.
Of that or any other Disney services. That is just what it said in the article. Yeah. But I think it's pretty interesting. So apparently you can get specific exceptions if you contribute enough to tax dollars to the state.
Well, that's what Ted Cruz said in the Wall Street Journal a few days ago. He said, I've had it. I'm not going to take your corporate money, and therefore I'm not going to write any special exceptions like I've been doing in laws like this, because you guys are too woke. And they said, you just admitted the corruption part.
Yeah.
Quiet about. Yeah, people who donate to my campaign, I totally pass laws in their favor, but I'm pissed off. I'm not going to do that anymore. And
that's amazing.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we all know it happens, but to just come right out and say it like that is pretty good.
And so I would think this would fall at the national level on the Supreme Court, because there's been an interpretation for about 50 years that the First Amendment right to speech also gives you the right to stay silent, which, by the way, is a new innovation that came out in the 60s because of people who did not want to go to prayer meetings or recite the Pledge of Allegiance in school. And until then, it did not but it was not interpreted as giving you the right to stay silent, but only the right to speak. And Apple used that to defend themselves when the FBI demanded that they write malware to hack into their own phones. They said, we have the right to be silent and not create that stuff. And that was never tested in court, but that was their argument. So this will be interesting if it gets to the Supreme Court to see what they do, because now we have the 6-3 conservative majority, and maybe they're going to, because that was a classic case of legislating from the bench. We had the First Amendment, and for about 200 years, we knew what it meant. And then they decided in the 60s, oh, it now means something it never meant before. That's the classic case of legislating from the bench. Anyway, this guy is probably our next president, Ron DeSantis. He's by far the Republican favorite after Trump.
Oh, that's a horrifying thought, Sam.
Just a bit.
He's, I think, probably the best option. He is the least insane Trumpiest. Say nobody can win that isn't Trumpy, and he's like less insane than most of them. In fact, they're now praising his COVID response. A lot of independent people are saying the end result of the total number of people that died in Florida is less than other states.
Praising it?
Oh yeah, independent third-party like liberal analysts are saying, because I think the real point is most people in Florida go outside, and that's what matters more than anything else.
Wow.
Anyway, I know, but this is our next president. You're talking about here.
Oh man.
I think there's nobody else in the Republican Party that comes even close in popularity after Trump.
This isn't supposed to be a horror podcast, Sam.
Hey, it's news. Anyway, so anyway, the AirTags. I think these things sound pretty great.
These things sound pretty great. And initially there was a fear of stalkers using them because they're only the size of a coin, so easy to hide.
Yeah.
So how do they have an anti-stalker feature? So this article kind of shows that the devices, if you have an Apple device, it will tell you, hey, there is a nearby AirTag. So if somebody tries to stalk you by putting in a little AirTag in your purse or in your car or whatever, it will, and you have an iPhone, it'll tell you, hey, there's an AirTag nearby that's not yours, but there's one in the vicinity. After 3 days, the AirTag will start making noise if it hasn't been found by an Apple device yet. So you can find out. I mean, 3 days is a little long, but you can find out if someone put an AirTag on you or somewhere around you to try to stalk you.
So obviously, you need to jailbreak your AirTag and figure out how to turn that off.
Right.
That would be awesome.
Right. So they do have some measures.
Yeah.
For those who fear that they're going to be used to stalk you, there are ways to detect these things.
Yeah, and this is what I'm hearing everybody talk about social media and everything. It's time that people actually think about who they're going to hurt with their product before rolling it out, as opposed to like rolling out some horrible thing on a social media. And then when people start getting stalked and killed, you say, gee, we never saw that coming.
Right. So they have something in it. And if you don't have an Apple device, you can still scan with any NFC enabled smartphone.
Yeah. Well, anyway, then I was surprised yesterday or the day before, I got an email from another instructor saying, hey, I looked in Kali Linux 2021 and the password hashes in the shadow file are type Y, %Y%, instead of %6, which is what they've been for a while. He said, is that a mistake or what? And it took me a long time to find it. There's a new password hashing algorithm called YesCrypt, which is considered the new hotness, better than all the ones before, based on scrypt, and it's the default for Kali Linux, and apparently it's going to be the default for Ubuntu if it's not already. So you'll see %Y%, and this is from Solar Designer, who is the guy that really made all the good stuff, and apparently it's better than scrypt, and he called it YesCrypt. So there's another password hashing algorithm in town, which is I haven't looked into it enough to know exactly why it's better, but I have a lot of confidence in Solar Designer. He really is the expert, so I imagine it probably is better. But anyway, I was surprised to see that.
Nice to see that we're adding new and good cryptography into our passwords compared to Windows, who's still using NTLM.
Yes, which is one round of MD4, which is mind-boggling. Yes. And so Baidu has driverless taxis.
Yeah, sorry, took a second to unmute myself there. So yeah, I thought this was pretty interesting, in that Baidu rolled out a driverless taxi service in Beijing, and there's no person sitting behind the wheel to take over in case there's a problem or anything like that. And so it's pretty interesting. I mean, it's cheap. Uh, and I would say that, one issue with taking taxis in Beijing is, if you don't know what you're doing and you get into the wrong one, you can get totally scammed. This happened to me once when I was there. Until some kind person, thank you T Profit, showed me what was up and how not to get scammed getting a taxi. So I would say that this is great because no one will get scammed, but I'm sure that's coming down the line. Remote taxi scams.
Well, one thing about them is it's not really taking you anywhere. It's just going around a little loop, which
Right.
is a lot more practical. It's almost like a little tram.
Right. Yeah, they go around like 8 stops in a couple miles of radius, mile or two. But it's a pretty cool, I think it's a pretty cool initiative, and it'll be interesting to see how it works out, because also traffic is just complete and total chaos there.
Yeah.
And I did notice that the article did mention that the cars are programmed to brake in the case of jaywalkers, and there sure are a lot of those. So and even when you're walking where you think you're supposed to be, it's hard to tell whether you're jaywalking or not. The best advice I got was wait for a big pack of people to cross the street and try to be in the middle, because then you are less likely to get mowed down. So
I've never seen traffic in my life like I saw in Beijing, and I never want to see it again. It's like your worst nightmare. Like,
yeah,
everybody just goes wherever they want with complete disregard for everybody else, like the wrong way, backwards, sideways.
yeah. And you might just park your car in the middle of an intersection and then
Yeah.
just go do your business.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So
I mean, if a taxi can actually automatically drive through that environment, I might feel safe enough to ride in that taxi. Whereas,
yeah, that's what I was leading up to there. That's one of the most high complexity environments you could have to test out this technology. So I'm really interested to see what the results are.
well, over here, our Teslas can't seem to drive down a freeway without plowing right into a tree. So
Mhm.
I think Tesla needs to buy some technology from Baidu or something.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes.
Yeah. I'm glad they're testing it out. I always thought a robot taxi would be safer than a human taxi if you built it well enough.
I would totally take one, because I mean, I feel like you're taking your life in your hands anytime you get in a car there or walk across the street. So I would totally do it.
Especially now that we're using Lyft. I mean, I've totally gotten rides from idiots that had no idea what they were doing. So I think a robot would be better than the worst Lyft driver anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. And the last one is the ransomware. So what's up with ransomware, Irvin?
From NPR.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting study. There are higher ransoms now for ransomware.
Oh, yeah.
The US still remains the most targeted country by far. And there's a double extortion when an attacker seizes data and demands payment. And if it's not forthcoming, then they publish the data.
Yep. And is there anything you can do about it?
I mean, other than backups and having some other fallback system to shrug and go, oh, well, or protecting your
I've
IP.
heard a lot of new government initiatives and industry recommendations, and they're all the same stuff. Change your default password, have a backup system, put endpoint protection systems on your endpoints. All the stuff that we know does not work.
Does not work, or is not being implemented.
Yeah.
Like the password thing, it's been 20, 30 years that we've been saying the same thing, and people still use password one.
Man, if you made something that worked, You could make a lot of money selling it. Buy this thing and it will stop ransomware. Everybody would buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a little like just overview of what's been happening lately. Like most hospitals are not so much getting hit. Oh no, they are. The
Right.
hospitals and local governments are the ones most hit. So are Fortune 500 companies instead of smaller organizations, since Fortune 500s can yield more money.
Yeah, this is what I've heard. Like cryptocurrency mining is pretty much out because you don't make enough money. To make the real money, you do ransomware or business email compromise. Those are the ways you can really get a lot of money out of hacking somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing is be aware of it. I would think segmenting your network would be a good way to limit the harm.
Yep,
Yeah.
I would agree.
All right. Well, that's it. We'll be back on Friday.